It's an important time for WFP and for the UN system as a whole. We're at the point of looking at how we as WFP internalize the new Sustainable Development Goals and how we take those goals as our starting point and how we align our activities and our processes to help countries deliver on those Sustainable Development Goals. The conversation we've been having internally over the last year has led us to focus on two of the SDGs, SDG 2 on zero hunger and SDG 17 on implementing the SDGs and partnering for sustainable development. These two Sustainable Development Goals have emerged as the focus of WFP's activities and efforts, and as the way in which we best highlight our contribution to helping countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We don't see two global agendas, one development, one humanitarian. We see one global agenda, and that global agenda is reflected in the Sustainable Development Goals. We see humanitarian activities as a component of that broader development agenda. I think that that's very important, that if we're serious about talking about lessening the divide between humanitarian activities and development activities, then we should also stop talking about these as two separate things and recognize that they're all part of the same process. We see the humanitarian component, the humanitarian actions, as maybe that part of the broader development agenda that needs more care, more attention to put it back on track. And that's part of WFP's role, but it's important to see that in a broader context and not in isolation. The structure of the strategic plan is to have these two broad goals, SDG 2 on zero hunger and SDG 17 on implementation. And then below that, to have 5 strategic objectives drawn from the language of the goals themselves. We've used the language the leaders developed rather than trying to adjust that and make it more technically comfortable for us. This is the political language that the leaders used, and it conveys the focus and the priorities that leaders collectively defined, and that will be reflected also in individual country programs and approaches. Below that, there are a series of 8 strategic results, which are in reality 8 of the 169 Sustainable Development Goal targets. We've taken 4 of the 5 targets from SDG 2, and we've taken 4 out of the 19 most relevant targets from SDG 17. All of WFP's work will fall into one of those 8 strategic results. Because those strategic results are also the SDG targets, it means that all of our work will be mappable not only to the SDG targets, but also to the SDG goals. And that's very important in terms of understanding and defining WFP's contribution to the broader global agenda. The last high-level element of the strategic plan is a series of contexts. And that's really, these are limitations on WFP's action or engagement. They're the boundaries of our action. Those contexts include situations of structural poverty or situations of disruption to normal patterns or processes, or situations of transition or recovery. One of those three contexts needs to be in place for WFP to have a role to play in a particular situation. We built roads in South Sudan to help link food centers to markets, to help strengthen market networks, but we're not an agency focused on road construction. So we are, and so it's important in the context of the SDGs to understand both the focus but also the limits of WFP's engagement. And those strategic contexts are designed to provide a guide to when WFP has a role to play and when WFP doesn't have a role to play.